your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your host, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, at least one more weekend where 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Producer John thinking he might be with us again beginning next week, which would be perfect timing considering that's the beginning of the racing season for NASCAR. But that being said, we're talking about racing this weekend because Formula E's in action. Also, we got some racing down in Daytona to kick off the year. Matt and Steve here can bring you all the latest news from the series that we cover as well. These will include a lot of rule changes coming down from NASCAR about the 2024 season. We cover Formula E, but we'll also be talking maybe whether electric car racing might spread a little bit more. I don't know about that. We also know when the next season of Formula One Drive to Survive will drop on Netflix. We'll talk about that. A loaded rookie class in the NHRA will detail. First chance to test 2024 IndyCar racers, new track in Formula One, and NASCAR details some chances to get some extra cash for some drivers in the Xfinity and Truck Series. All that and more when we go green on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, you might have noticed we're a little early. It's because the show that precedes us on our flagship station in East Central Alabama was a little bit shorter than what we were expecting this week. But,
Yeah.
longer than what we expected. So,
Yep.
all good. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers, again, out dealing with his other job, his paying job, so to speak. So, hopefully he'll be back again with us in the next week or two. This actually works out because I want to kind of go over those rule changes here in a couple of minutes. But first off, let's talk about the weekend of racing here, which actually kicked off yesterday. Formula E doing a double header in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia on a city course entitled the Riyadh Street Course. 21 turns over a little over 1.5 miles long. Race 1 happened yesterday in Saudi Arabia for us, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. You think about 2 weeks ago in Mexico City, race 1 was dominated by Pascal Wehrlein. Race 2, kind of the same story, not as dominant. I mean, Pascal Wehrlein claimed the pole, led every lap, got the win. Now, in this particular case, defending series champion Jake Dennis didn't start on the pole. That went to Jean-Eric Vergne, which we'll get back to later on in the show. But Dennis, starting third, grabbed the lead very quickly after the start. He led the rest of the way all the way to the finish line, more than 13-second advantage over the pole sitter Vergne when all was said and done. Nick Cassidy third, trailed by Sam Bird, Mitch Evans, Norman Nato, Max Gunther. Then there's Wehrlein. He finished 8th. Sergio Sette-Camara and Robin Freins round out the top 10. Now, since there is a second race for them this weekend coming up later today, which we're about to detail, we're not going to deal with points because that's going to change within 6 hours of now.
Right.
So we'll save points for next weekend. But later today, race number 2 going to get rolling. Same exact course, 21 turns, 1.55 miles long specifically. Again, it's called the Riyadh Street Course. It can be seen, if you're patient, on a major delay on the CBS Sports Network. How much of a delay? Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Central.
48-hour delay,
That's all. Go to FIAFormulaE.com. You might actually see a replay well before that. Also, beginning today, a race that you and I had the chance to go to just last year. Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, running on the road course at Daytona International Speedway. When to talk about the road course, that makes it a 3.56 mile long course featuring 12 turns. Now, we know this. If you have the Peacock streaming service, you could just lock it on there and you'd be good for 24 straight hours, save for the fact that you got to go. Are you still there? Yes. But here's the other stuff that we also know. Start of the race, the first 50 minutes of it, going to air on NBC. Then USA will pick up the coverage on and off for about 13 and a half total hours. I would check your local listings for when. NBC is slated to air the final hour and 40 minutes of the endurance race with a planned 20 minutes of post-race coverage. So they'll air the last, give or take, 2 hours of the race as well tomorrow. Race set to go green 1:40 p.m. Eastern, 12:40 p.m. Central Time later today. So you figure it'll end at 12:40 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. That means they'll go on the air and be on the air from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on NBC.
You're like us at 6 a.m. last year.
Oof.
You still there? Huh?
Sort of.
Maybe.
It was a great time. Again, said it last week. We'll say it again. It was a fun time. It was a great experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I would do it again.
Oh, sure.
With a little tiny bit of thinking twice.
Well, yeah,
but
a little more pre-planning.
Yeah, I would do it again.
But, take the time, do a little bit of everything, experience a little bit of everything. And the fun part about the Rolex 24 is really you're set to go to the infield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's where the vast majority of everything goes on. You have the opportunity to go into the infield right off the bat. Go in, check it out. A lot of car clubs, high-end, big money car company clubs.
BMW, Porsche,
Lamborghini, Ferrari.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're all there. And, Lamborghini was using Lamborghinis to shuttle people around.
Yeah. Porsche was too.
Think about that.
Porsche was too.
High-end shuttle of cars. But said it last week, I'll say it again in case you missed the show. Take the time at some point to go up and sit in the grandstands. Mm-hmm. And we get it. It can be cool out down there. Probably not this weekend.
Do it in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah. Do it when all the lights are on and the headlights are on the cars, and go up there and sit over there, turn towards the entrance where they go into the road course section infield right after pit road. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it is you'll realize very quickly they come out at basically the same spot. Mm-hmm. If you sit up right on the end of those grandstands in the 300 or 400 upper sections, you can see the entire track.
Not a bad view in the house from that level.
No, not at all.
Not even close.
So, yeah, if you get the opportunity, it's worth it to go.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's this. We're going to take a pretty good amount of extra time to talk about this because they went through NASCAR changing a lot of these rules. And a lot of them, they said, had to deal with getting feedback from the teams and or the drivers. For example, this one. In the meetings early this week, they're going to change how qualifying will set up the field for the race other than the Daytona 500. Daytona 500 has always been a little bit different anyway. Okay? So the Daytona 500, you'll get where we'll set up the front row, and then you'll get the qualifying races that'll set the rest of the field. Well, qualifying race number 1 sets the inside line for the Daytona 500. Qualifying race number 2 sets the outside line, right? Well, that's kind of the idea, only flipped. When it comes to regular qualifying, think Atlanta, Talladega, wherever we're going. The field is still going to be split into halves, randomly, I guess, by draw.
Draw.
The Fast Five from each half will go on to a second round. That'll ultimately set your top 10. Past that, to set the field from positions 11 through 20, that will be set by speed during the qualifying group. The first group, however, will line up on the outside row. And then group number 2 will line up by speed on the inside row. NASCAR said, again, this was done in response to concerns from the teams and the drivers. I got to ask this. What was the concern?
That's my question. What's your concern? What happened to simple single car qualifying? Fastest man starts first, slowest man starts tail end of the field.
Well, and I heard some of this fairly explained, and I don't know how much of this, but over the course of qualifying, we've heard it said that if you go out first, sometimes that could be an advantage, sometimes that can be a disadvantage. If you go out last, sometimes that can be an advantage, sometimes a disadvantage, because the track conditions change over the course of, an hour and a half of qualifying.
Approximately.
You know, because the weather could change, cloud conditions could change, track taking in rubber changes things up.
Track temperature,
all of that stuff does change, so it does affect it. So what they're trying to do is trying to keep the groups, apparently, that went out in A a little more close together and those in B, and try and make it a little bit more even. Because you and I have seen this, not necessarily at Talladega, but we've certainly seen it at some of the other tracks that we've been to, where Group A might be actually a second, maybe even a second and a half faster or slower than Group B.
Mm-hmm. Charlotte.
Atlanta, to a certain extent.
Charlotte, Vegas, Texas, that can happen.
Yeah. So
Bristol.
You know, I didn't realize how much. I guess I'm saying this. I didn't realize how much of a concern this was. I mean, this doesn't seem like one of those things that's a major red flag. Maybe a yellow flag situation where you kind of wave it around and go, "Hey, can we do something about this?" But that was the headline rule change, and it just seems it seems like you're trying to kill an ant with a sledgehammer.
Yeah. That's what it seems like. Why are we trying to break something, fix something that's not broken?
I don't know. Apparently they felt like it was broken.
I don't think it was broken, but that seems to be a trend with this series.
Another change for the Cup Series has to do with towing. The towing in this next generation car has been somewhat problematic because just towing the car has caused damage to the underside of some of these racers. So for this upcoming season, should a car spin during qualifying, they'll send out a tow truck with a dolly that'll lift the car up before they hook it up to be towed. Testing has determined that the next-gen car can be towed up to about 70 miles per hour safely, but they noted that towing will remain limited to qualifying and not during the race due to the time that it would take to lift the car up and then hook it to a tow vehicle. So I guess otherwise we're using flatbeds the entire time.
I would say probably it's not going to be the flatbed, because the loading it on a flatbed would be worse than hooking it to a wrecker.
Could be, yeah.
I think that's what they're going to do is regular wreckers that's got little low dollies off the back of it, extend those out, pick up the front, and take off with it, or pick up the end of the car that's not got damage to it or flat tires.
And from everything
that.
And from everything that I can tell, we're still in that situation to where if the car is just beached, in other words, you get a flat tire, and because of the situation that we've been in, that we've seen with this next gen car, that if you get especially 2 flat tires on either the front or the back, the car can't go.
Yeah, it's not going.
It can't get enough traction to actually get itself motivated. So they'll actually take it to the pit stall and drop the car and let you work on the car and continue on. Whereas before this generation of car, if you had to hook it up to the tow vehicle, you were taking it to the garage, and you might as well consider your race and day done.
Pretty much. Again, why would you do it for qualifying? Well,
they said because there's more time in qualifying, and they didn't want to waste all that much time when it came to green flags. Which that I can appreciate.
Well,
I would rather you get back to racing much faster than what you do.
Yeah, but if the tow vehicle, let's word it that way, the tow vehicle is immediately dispatched to wherever the disabled car is, whether it be from damage or a flat tire, and you're at a track, say, like, let's just use Talladega, for example.
Sure.
Your longest pace lap on the series, arguably. You can get the car back to pit area pretty quick.
Yeah, you can.
Because 70 miles per hour is pace speed.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just I will just have to see it happen with my own 2 eyes.
Yeah,
to make a determination.
It's going to be one of those things we got to see it in practice. Because not seeing it in practice and just talking about it, sometimes you miss out on some details that'll actually come up when it comes to real life. Other changes. Well, there's one more change that affects the Cup Series that I found out about. We've talked about the double plenty of times. We talked about John Andretti doing it, Tony Stewart doing it. I'm trying to think of some of the others that have done it. Kurt Busch being the latest one, obviously, who did it back in 2014. Well, this year, Kyle Larson's going to do it. Now, what was the one thing that we saw as a constant throughout all of these drivers that have done the double? Which, if you're new, the double, again, is running the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. Okay?
Missing the driver's meeting.
Missing the driver's meeting. You know this. You're the resident driver. I know this. If you miss the driver's meeting, there's a penalty involved.
Start shotgun.
You got to go to the back end of the field. It doesn't matter where you qualified the car. This affects Kyle Larson because, again, Kyle Larson is set to drive in the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 this year. Why they didn't do this for John Andretti or Tony Stewart or Kurt Busch or, again, any of the other drivers that have done it, Robbie Gordon, I don't know. Why they did it this year, I'll let you surmise. This year, NASCAR is suspending the rule that states that a driver running the double has to be in the driver's meeting for the Coca-Cola 600, or they start at the shotgun tail end of the field. In other words, wherever Kyle Larson qualifies that 5 car, he gets to go to Indianapolis, finish whenever and wherever he finishes that, get on the helicopter, go to the airport from Indy to Charlotte, helicopter from airport to race, get in his car, and should he have started on the pole, he'll still get to start on the pole.
I want to see something.
Now, I've said this, but this is great publicity. Okay? Here's the good part. This is the great publicity factor because NASCAR fans will want to watch the Indy 500, which they may or may not have normally, because Kyle Larson's in there and they want to see how he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Indy 500 fans might also be fairly curious as to find out how a driver that's already run 500 miles in a relatively punishing manner, because we know a little bit about Indy cars to know that's not the easiest race car on the planet to drive.
No.
And then turn around, 2 helicopter jumps and a flight in between them, and then jump into a stock car and try to drive 600 miles. And again, only one driver has run all 1,100 miles, and that's Tony Stewart. No other driver's been able to complete both races and run all the laps. So this is fantastic publicity.
Sure.
But part of the drama of that race, or that day, when Tony Stewart did complete all 500 miles of the Indy 500 and all 600 miles of the Coca-Cola 600, part of that drama was that Tony Stewart had to come from the back of the field in a 43-car field and still finished on the lead lap inside the top 10. That was part of the drama of it.
Oh, yeah.
We're kind of taking away some of that drama, aren't we?
It's taken a little bit away for sure. But my thing would be this. Would they have amended this rule for somebody, say, like, I don't know. Let's all right. Let's use this one. Now that he drives with him and drives for him, let's say Justin Haley was going to try the double with Rick Ware and Dale Coyne.
Sure.
Would they have amended this rule for him?
You're kind of going where I was thinking, because truth be told, I was thinking this. Let's go back and say we're in the alternate universe where Kyle Larson actually got approval from Ford Motor Company, and he ended up at Stewart Haas Racing.
Mm-hmm.
If Kyle Larson were at SHR right now, driving whatever number car, doesn't matter, and he and Tony and whoever worked out a deal to get him to run the double, would he have gotten this waiver?
I'm not so sure he would have. I'm 50-50 on that one.
Because I'll be real blunt when I say this. I think it has less to do with the driver more to do with the team owner. And or said manufacturer. I could see that as well. I'm thinking Kyle Larson had very little to do with this. These are forces outside and beyond Kyle. I don't think he was pressing for this at all. But I'm not sure this was on his radar at all.
Because you've got Arrow McLaren, Chevrolet, Hendrick, Chevrolet. And then when this deal is immediately signed, what's adorning the side pods of this car all of a sudden?
HendrickCars.com.
HendrickCars.com.
So,
and what has Rick Hendrick explicitly, openly said? What has driven the value of HendrickCars.com through the roof? Kyle Larson.
And his performance. And his championship run.
And what now adorns every single dirt car that he sets into? HendrickCars.com.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to throw Rick Hendrick under the bus.
Oh, no.
I got a heck of a lot of respect for what Rick Hendrick has built and what he's accomplished. And truth be told, the power that he wields within NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
You have to respect that. But at the same time, I ask the question, if Kyle Larson were driving for anybody other than Hendrick Motorsports, would he have gotten this waiver? And I don't think so. I don't think so. And truth be told, I'm not a big fan of it.
I'm not either, because it's setting a new precedent.
It's setting a bad precedent to me.
And it's setting a bad precedent. I agree. But now, for the vast most part, let's say it that way.
Okay.
Drivers' meetings are really turned into social gatherings.
Oh, yeah. You and I have been there. We've been in them.
Several of them.
I mean, you've been in a driver's meeting as a driver, but you've seen it as part of the media, I believe.
Part of the media and part of a team.
Okay. Well, I have not been, obviously, as a driver, but I have attended drivers' meetings, and you're right. It's a lot of, let us introduce these dignitaries that are at the race today.
And the one that was in said drivers' meeting that I was a part of with the team was virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
It was done via Zoom.
Yeah. And then you get, in the couple that I've been to, you get to watch a video specifically at Talladega, which goes, as a reminder, double yellow line, out of bounds, blah, blah, blah. You know, all the rules that we all hear when it comes to these things.
Yep.
You know, they tell you what the pit road speed is. They tell you here's where you need to slow down and be at pit road speed. Here is where you can start to speed back up, but you can't blend into traffic until you get to this point on the track. All of these things are all dealt with, but it's all dealt with in a video.
Yeah.
It's not like somebody standing up at the podium and going list by list. This is what specifically is at Talladega. This specifically is what you have to do rules-wise at Charlotte or Martinsville or Phoenix or wherever.
Yeah.
The video covers it all, and it's specific to each track, and that's it.
It's one of those skull scratchers.
Yeah. I mean, no, the driver's meeting is not the most important thing on the planet. But you've had them, and you've had this rule in place that said you miss the driver's meeting, you start at the back of the field. And it's been in existence since, what, the beginning of NASCAR?
Mm-hmm.
So for 75 years, you had that precedent. For John Andretti's tries, for Tony Stewart's tries, for Robbie Gordon's tries, for Kurt Busch's trying the double, they all had to deal with that rule. But now all of a sudden, Kyle Larson doesn't.
Yeah, and it's... he's got more than plenty of time to get from Indy to Charlotte because it's a 1 hour and 57-minute flight straight shot from Indianapolis, not to Charlotte International, but Concord Regional, which is less than a mile away from Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
So that's easy.
Yeah.
And you know there's going to be a helicopter sitting there waiting to just ferry him right over to the track.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's 871,912 red lights in between Concord Regional and Charlotte Motor Speedway, right there at that exit.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen it happen. All of the drivers that I've just mentioned have done this. As you start to get to the point where you're doing post-race, assuming he makes it all 500 miles, let's just say he makes it to the end of the race.
Say he finishes top 3.
Sure, why not? Or top 6, whatever.
Does Indycar give him a pass, go, oh, you're good to go, you're okay, go ahead and go to Charlotte?
Yeah.
You got to do your media obligation of being top 3.
Yeah, got to do the post-race interview. Now, they may rush it. Yeah. It may be pre-recorded by the time you actually see it, whether you're at the track and see it on the screens or whether you're at home watching it on television, you see it on TV. It may be pre-recorded and played back for you later to give him the opportunity to get there. But there's going to be a golf cart waiting. So, again, let's presume he gets all 500 miles. He does finish the race. He does finish top 3. As soon as that car crosses the line, the helicopter spools up. He goes through, they've got a golf cart waiting within 10 yards, maybe closer, of where his race car gets parked on pit road. He'll do his post-race interview. He'll jump in the golf cart. He'll go to the helicopter, airport Indianapolis to airport Charlotte area. They're going to be updated the entire time on where the plane is. And as the plane is on approach, helicopter at the airport near Charlotte spools up. So all he's got to do is go plane to helicopter, and helicopter takes off as soon as the door's shut and gets him to Charlotte Raceway.
Yeah, the odds are he'll probably have Hendrick's fastest jet there. Because the way
let's face it.
the way digital flight tracking goes nowadays, people can watch, oh, they're over Southern Ohio, they're over Kentucky, they're over Tennessee. They're coming in on approach to Concord. Spool it up. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know.
They're going to get all those updates the entire way. Why now? Why suspend the rule about the driver's meeting for this race? And it's got to be because Rick Hendrick has that kind of pull. I don't think Penske has that pull. I don't think Tony Stewart has that pull. I don't think Brad Keselowski at RFK Racing has that pull. The only guy who's got that kind of pull is Rick Hendrick. It benefits Kyle Larson. Congratulations.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
When you have to have service work done at your house, don't you just hate hearing we'll be there between 10 and 5? Ruins your entire day. That'll never happen when you call Mizell Heating and Air. Wayne will give you a set time and he'll be there on time every time.
Still talking about rule changes coming to NASCAR for the 2024 season. We've detailed Cup. This one affects more than just the Cup Series. It also affects what's going on in Xfinity and the Truck Series. When it comes to wet weather tires, now we do have them, and they will return to all road courses and most of the ovals that are 1 mile or shorter. Now, I say most because Bristol and Dover aren't included. High banking. Too much pressure. The other requirements for wet weather racing have changed a little bit as well. At this point in time, NASCAR, effective as of this season, only the wet weather tires and a defogger for the windshield are going to be required. Lights, wiper blades, and rear flaps, we saw all of those, for example, at Chicago. They will be required at all road and, in the case of Chicago, street courses, but for those oval tracks, they're not going to be required.
That is... the way they worded that is very vague. Here's why I say that. Only the tires and a defogger for the windshield will be required.
Because they don't want to have somebody having to jump over the wall, an extra person jumping over the wall trying to clean their windshield.
The way they worded that there is that the requirement all the time, whether it's dry and wet or just wet. Because here's why I say that.
No, go ahead.
Because last year, the requirement for it was everybody had, no matter if it's wet or dry, whichever track you're at, the short track or the road course.
Yeah. If you had the ability to take the wet weather tires to that track, you had to have all this.
Yeah. the main thing, the lights, irrelevant. I had a firsthand experience with all this stuff in Mid-Ohio, which I'm still drying out from. The one key thing here, how long is it going to take for somebody to complain about aerodynamical advantages with the wiper blades?
Mm-hmm.
It was mandated last year because they didn't want one person or the other to have an aero advantage.
Sure. And if you always noted, even if it was dry at a track like, we'll say Martinsville, and they showed that camera right on top of the car, you
had it.
saw that wiper, but it was in a
Everybody had
specific place.
Straight up and down.
Why?
Because
Aerodynamics.
Aerodynamics, it's not cutting the airflow over the windshield.
Exactly.
It's staying within a parallel line where the air's going over the windshield.
Yeah.
The rear flaps, running them on in dry conditions is absolutely baffling. Where they need to set the line is pending how local respective weather outlooks are and what the probabilities are. Say if you're at let's just say hypothetically, this rule change stays in place for 2025. The Xfinity Series, they go away from Portland.
Mm-hmm.
They decide they want to come to Barber.
Okay.
All right. They're coming to Barber in, I don't know, June, which that would be literally the pits of, what?
It'd be hot.
It'd be hot. But we know how summer in Alabama can go.
Oh, yeah.
Pop
Thunderstorms at the drop of a hat.
At the snap of a finger. Oh, hey, how are you? Boom.
Yep.
And you're soaking wet. All right. If that local weather outlook for the weekend, and there is better than a 50% chance of rain coming, I would say, yes, you mandate them being on there.
Mm-hmm.
If there's less than a 50% chance of rain, but we know sometimes here in the state of Alabama, if they say 20% chance of rain during the summer, it's a 200% chance of rain. You're getting wet. If you know that it's going to be doing it better than, I'd say better than 50% odds, mandate it on there. But if it's not, leave it off of there because it is the dumbest thing I have ever seen to run those little rubber rear flaps. Oh, somebody wants to do a burnout. Next thing you know, half the back of your car's on fire where the fuel cell's at because the rubber flaps caught on fire.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
The one place where that actually probably really made a difference, the one track out of all the tracks that needed to have this wet weather package was Chicago. Only because of the long straightaways on that figure eight course for all intents and purposes.
But when you got that situation, let's say it's less than that 50% chance. You've got your man or woman, whoever it may be. Let's be technical where we don't upset anybody nowadays. They're watching the radar like, hey, so-and-so the tower, we've got some pop-up thunderstorms, pop-up showers popping up around the area here. We need to bring the field down pit road. You give them you stop the race, you give them 5 minutes because those rear flaps,
they don't take that.
I've seen them. They're all held on, guess what, by 3 bolts apiece.
Yeah. Pull the back tires off, bolt.
You don't even have to pull the tires off.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you wanted to be safe.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Pull the tire off, zip them on, put the tire back on.
There's enough room to where between where the tire's at to where they attach at, you can slip your hand up in there with a wrench or whatever is going to be held on the end of it and go bzz, bzz, bzz,
yeah.
Boom, they're on. And then you've got your motor already, your wiper motor already installed.
Sure.
Just click it on, there you go. And leave the lights just wired in there, but you have you got the switch.
Yeah, got a switch on the dashboard.
I mean, I've seen it out of my own 2 eyes. I know.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, I don't know. Somebody's going to try and be slick with his wiper blade.
Oh, heck yeah.
Not being mandated. Hey, look there.
Yeah,
that
it's
car's
not
2 tenths
mandated,
quicker.
but it's not mandated. But hey, does it give me an advantage? Put it on.
We're gonna find out. Hey,
Somebody's gonna try it.
I'm 2 tenths quicker.
Because
leave it.
I mean, how many times have we said it on this show over the course of its history? There's a lot of lovely little sayings in the world of racing. One of them is, you don't read the rule book for what is in there, you read the rule book for what isn't in there.
Boom.
Chad Knaus made a very, very good Hall of Fame living off of that.
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
This one does not come as a surprise because we pretty much figured this was going to happen after the wreck happened. Following the Daytona 500, officials are going out there and workers are going to get started on taking out the grassy areas. They're all going to be paved over. This is in response to the crash that Ryan Preece had last August. In reviewing the crash, NASCAR officials determined that the grass had a negative impact on the car. It created lift. It grabbed a hold of the racer, and that caused it to barrel roll multiple times. Again, all credit in the world to the doctors and to Ryan Preece for being able to be tough enough to get in the car the very next week. So all the grass basically on the backstretch, all the way down to turn 3, it's all going to be paved. And that'll be done by the time the August race gets going.
Dear NASCAR,
It's not a surprise, but
why is it taking you just till now to acknowledge this when you've had the main areas at Talladega Superspeedway paved for, I know, 15 years minimum?
on this show, the week after that wreck, you and I got talking about it, and we said at that time, we asked at that time, how long will it be before that area gets paved? We said it the next week.
Because at a time, Talladega was the worst for seeing flips.
Oh, yeah.
There was an average of 1, if not 2 flips per race.
Mm-hmm.
What has almost
Yeah.
minimalized itself in non-existent
Yeah.
flips.
Yeah. Look at that Alabama Gang super stretch at Talladega Superspeedway. Compare it to the backstretch at Daytona, and we can tell you what the difference is and why the number of cars flipping at Talladega has dropped significantly.
When you see a flip at Talladega, said reason of said flip is because car gets punted and catapulted into the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not because of the grass, because grass speeds the car up.
Yeah. But remember, we got that funky little chicane bus stop area back there just before you get into turn 3 that will come into play today and into tomorrow in the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. So what do you get when it comes to going on this grass through that area on the backstretch of Daytona? You get a transition from grass to asphalt, back to grass, back to asphalt, and all of that's causing the car to do this, creating lift. Car jumps up, hits, the grass grabs, in this case, I can't remember which side tire, but it grabbed the side tires because the car had been turned sideways.
It grabbed the right side.
It grabbed the right side, and all of a sudden, here we go, barrel rolling.
He went from asphalt to grass, and when he went that transition from asphalt to grass, which is roughly about that much.
Inch and a half to 2 inches.
That's just enough to grab the sidewalls of the tires, and guess what?
Boom. And you get a flip of
Yep.
10 to 12 times. Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Easy. And that's exactly what Brian Preece dealt with.
Yep.
Rumble strips have become a situation. They're going away at Watkins Glen and at Daytona after NASCAR took information from mouth guards of the drivers in all top 3 series, of all things that they could do research and development on. The steep curbing through the bus stop at the Glen causing excessive car hopping. It caused what NASCAR claims to be excessive forces upon the driver, which we talked about that with this next-gen car and how much of what used to be kind of absorbed by the car doesn't get absorbed by the car anymore because this car is that much stiffer. So all of those forces that used to be absorbed by the car are now being absorbed by the driver. So they're going to remove those and replace them with what they call contact pads, temporary strips that'll be installed that are an inch or less tall. They're set to be tested beforehand. In the meantime, you get recessed rumble strips that are going to be put into the runoff section to turn 1 at the Glen to try to limit drivers from using the extra pavement off of the 90-degree right-hand turn.
Okay.
These guys are going to press the limits as far as they can go. The only thing that you're going to do to keep the drivers from going outside the racing line is to mandate, like Formula One does, you can't go off the racing surface.
Track limits.
That's the only way you're going to keep them from doing it. Because if the NASCAR drivers, and I don't care what series it is, trucks, Xfinity, Cup, ARCA,
If there's asphalt, they're using it.
if there's asphalt there and they don't get penalized for using it, they're gonna.
That's this one.
I
Outside
kind
of a couple more they done, this one is
yeah,
irrelevant.
I kind of get the rumble strip thing because I remember what happened at Indianapolis a couple of years ago on the road course.
Yeah.
And how those rumble strips on that road course were grabbing this front splitter and ripping the front splitter off the car and creating wrecks. So I get that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, I understand because of the forces now being absorbed by the drivers in the next-gen car. So I get removing the rumble strips.
But with it
This excessive, this going off into the runoff section, you're going to have to tell them that's out of bounds and there's a penalty, or else they're going to continue to do it.
I don't know, man. I don't know. This one, I guess Dr. NHRA or whoever they use decided, let's check out the mouth guard piece. And say, you have 3.74 G's too much of force on your mouth. We need to take the rumble strip. Give me a break.
Yeah. We'll see.
Give me a break.
This one's going to be an interesting one as well. This one affects Xfinity Series cars only. Because Xfinity Series operations have been, or the teams have requested NASCAR to work with them to reduce costs. So they're limiting backup cars. Huh? Yeah. Organizations that field 1 or 2 full-time cars will be permitted to bring 1 backup car. If you are bringing 3 or more cars to a particular race, you'll be able to bring 2 full-time cars. These cars can be fully race prepared, but there's only 1 engine available between them.
Hello, full fields. Somebody that is a 1 or 2 car team is about to magically expand to 3 cars or more.
Think, I don't know, Jordan Anderson Racing or Sam Hunt Racing, maybe?
Yeah, because
saying.
because this one makes no sense.
It gets worse.
Makes no sense.
It gets worse. In addition, this backup car will have to have a single color wrap, color submitted by the team to NASCAR beforehand, as opposed to having the full sponsor wrap, because those wraps are not cheap to produce. Okay? For example, Junior Motorsports has already said their cars will be black. Stewart Haas Racing might be red. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But 1 color. The only things that will be allowed on that single color wrap are the contingency sponsor logos and the logo of the car make, assuming, of course, that you're still in the good graces with your car maker. Mm-hmm. If the backup car is needed, then the teams break out a decal package and place the decals for the sponsors and the car numbers and apply them very carefully under the watchful eye of NASCAR officials. Because again, as we note, decals, while it's not ridiculously thick, have a thickness. And kind of like the whole windshield wiper thing, they're going to see and they're going to try and figure out a way, if they can get away with it, that makes it more aerodynamic.
Yeah. These will be the good old days of the base color car, and it'll just be a painted car.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is going to be an interesting one to watch.
This is probably, I would say, one of the dumber things I've ever heard.
This is going to be an interesting one to watch.
Dumb. And after the break here, I've got some more on it.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
This is team owners going, save us from ourselves. We can't figure out how not to spend all this money, so tell us how to not spend money. And we came up with an answer to this quote-unquote problem that, to me, is going to create many more problems to come.
Yep.
We will be right back with more on the channel. Racing Network.
Wow, still talking about rules. This one was one of the ones that threw up a question mark for me. Xfinity and Craftsman Truck Series teams are going to be using smaller fuel cans this year. They're going to drop from 11 gallons to 9. Xfinity Series Director Wayne Otten said this was being done in order for the teams to be able to use a, quote, less specialized athlete for gas man operations. What?
Again.
That was a problem?
I'm going to take one step back. And I got another thought on this backup car wrap situation.
Okay.
Like I said, you're about to see 1 and 2 car teams expand real rapidly to 3.
Yeah, suddenly they've got 3 cars available.
To be able to utilize the multiple backup car effort.
Sure.
Here's why. All right, let's say your first practice session. Wait a minute. I think they're practicing, getting around to practice at Daytona.
They are going to practice at Daytona.
Okay. All right. They get around to practice at Daytona. All right. Let's say you've got Sam Hunt racing. You got the 24 and 26 car.
Mm-hmm.
You can only use one backup car. Let's just say there's an 8-car pack just running a small pack, and they're just running. And he sees where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly where you're going.
First or second place car loses a tire, spins out in front of track, has a tire go flat, or hits a piece of debris, cuts a tire.
Takes out both 24 and 26.
Takes out the whole front round, the whole 8-car draft. 24 and 26 cars gone.
Suddenly, Sam Hunt has only 1 car available, even though they had 2 cars that were in the race.
Yeah, you only got one and both cars are irreparable beyond damage is irreparable.
Yeah,
this makes no sense. And the smaller fuel can. You've got Xfinity and Truck.
I get it. They've got shorter races, which means they got shorter stages.
Shorter races, shorter stages.
I get that, but at the same point in time, what are you saving?
Nothing. You're saving nothing. Here's why. Using a less specialized athlete. Okay, you're going from 11 gallons to 9 gallons. What is that going to cause that you have to do? That is going to be shorter pit stop cycle, therefore using more fuel to get to the end of said race. And one more rule change that I know they did, then I don't know if I'm foreshadowing or not. I don't think I am. But all races for the truck series, all 23, are live pit stops. No controlled pit stops anymore.
Nope.
Guess what that means? More money. You got to pay a crew to come. All right. I know for a fact that weekend, Cup and Xfinity's in Daytona. Trucks is in Milwaukee. What you going to do there?
Got to hire a pit crew.
You got to fly a pit crew from Florida to Wisconsin.
Now, and here's the other part of it. We already have specialization when it comes to pit crews anyway.
Yeah, you do.
You have a specific person who's the rear tire changer.
Rear tire changer, front
you
tire
have a
changer.
Specific person for a jack man. You have a specific person for a gas man.
Front tire, and
This
you got a
isn't
tire.
saving anything.
You got a tire carrier.
This isn't saving anything.
If anything, you're spending more.
It's kind of a worthless rule.
Yeah, if anything, you're spending more.
Because now you got to go, NASCAR's got to go and supply all of these teams in the Truck Series and Xfinity with new gas cans. NASCAR also set to show this off. Their first ever battery-powered racer. That's right, NASCAR's got an EV. Not an RV, an EV. Jeff Gluck of The Athletic reported on Tuesday that the car is set to do a demonstration run of the Busch Light Clash, stating this, and that he specifically stated this, and I want to make this perfectly clear too, for one particular reason. Social media. And those people who read a headline and immediately overreact. Jeff Gluck states, from NASCAR, They have no intentions. Excuse me. Sorry about that. No intentions at this time of actually racing an EV car. It is merely a test bed. So for all you people who saw the headline, NASCAR's got an EV, and went on social media and went, when they go all battery powered, I'm done with NASCAR. Ain't happening. Not for quite a while. Settle down.
All right.
Jeff Gluck added this, by the way. It's not of a particular make. You got the picture up, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not a particular make. It's a generic NASCAR-built body. The EV does have lights. David Reagan's set to drive it. Reagan was also the test driver of this car back when he took the car out in December, reportedly turned about 350 laps in that racer over the course of 3 different days. No word on how many laps he was able to run before they needed a recharge. You can see a picture of it right now. If you are not on CRN Live on YouTube, you can see it now, courtesy of Dale Earnhardt's Dirty Mo Media.
All right, I'm going to throw a flag on the play. Personal foul on NASCAR here. 1. If you're going to go that far to build a car of that nature and then immediately say, we're not going to have a series of it, then why did you burn the money to build it just to see what one would look like?
Well,
makes no sense.
I have part of the answer for that.
All right.
Okay.
Before I go to the second part.
On that same route, this particular body and chassis can handle more than just the batteries.
Sure.
NASCAR has stated they understand exactly what all the people complaining on social media were complaining about. That part of the allure of going to a NASCAR race, which has been part of the allure for 75 years of its all of its existence, is you approach the racetrack with cars on the track. What do you hear? You hear that V8 engine rumble. And we all like that. NASCAR understands. That's a good portion of the allure of a race fan, is to be able to listen to the engines roar. Mm-hmm. And they want to do that. This, I'm going to call it an SUV because, truth be told, it looks more like an SUV than anything else that I can figure. NASCAR has taken this research and development test bed and said, now that we've checked out the EV side, and it'll run within about a few tenths speed-wise of what an actual Cup car will do, we see how quote-unquote viable it may or may not be. Now we're going to start looking into other alternative fuels. They are going to start looking into hydrogen fuel cells. Mm-hmm. Because you can use an internal combustion engine with a hydrogen fuel cell and do what? Keep the wonderful engine noise we have. This car is not just an EV test bed. This car is a test bed for NASCAR. That's why they spent the money on it. That part I understand.
Yeah. And they said it's a hybrid, not a particular make body. Okay.
Right.
I'm looking at this photo. One,
yeah,
it looks to me they took something off of the frame of a truck series frame.
Okay.
Because of the way the greenhouse is in the middle, the height of it, it is reminiscent of a truck series frame and chassis. Okay. Secondly,
definitely got the Cup Series tires on it, though.
It's got the Cup Series suspension and spindles on it to make it the single low wheel.
Yeah.
Secondly, and the reason I'm about to say this is because who is David Reagan a driver for? Manufacturer.
He's a driver for Ford.
And what does this?
We'll get back to that.
What does this body lines and everything eerily look similar to? A Mustang Mach-E.
Which I tend not to put the Mustang part on it. Because I'm sorry, it's not a Mustang.
No.
But yeah, if you were to break that down, I would immediately start to think Mach-E. Absolutely.
Mach-E all day.
Yep, absolutely. We also found out about this when we get to Darlington's first racing weekend of the year. There's a reason why I put this just under NASCAR as opposed to, say, Cup Series, because as we have seen over the course of time, the throwback weekend has expanded out. The Truck Series and the Xfinity Series take part in it as well. So I decided to put it under just basic NASCAR. The annual throwback weekend this year, the track said it's going to go back to the sport's roots. Be interesting to see how some of the throwback schemes are going to be doing this time, because the track wants to pay homage to grassroots and local racing efforts that got the drivers started. So you're going to see a lot of paint schemes basically that go back to the very first racers, apparently, that some of these drivers got into.
And here's where you get an applause from me right here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have a problem with this.
I don't either, because you've got some of these schemes from yesteryear, let's word it that way, that have more than ran its course.
Yeah, I would agree.
They've been ran one too many times, way too many times, and...
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen somebody take a Dale Earnhardt look and then 3 other cars in that same race have a Dale Earnhardt look?
Or the Bobby Allison Miller High Life car.
Or Bobby Allison or DW.
Darrell Waltrip, Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
They've ran the DuPont cars 4,983,614 times.
Yeah. And while it's great to honor those who have paved the way for the current generation, let's do something a little different. Let's do something just a touch different.
I can think back to something that Dan said to us when we was up there one year. I think it was 19. When this was started, it was intended to be era by era.
Yeah.
But it spiraled out of control, and nobody would. Very few would stay in the era that it was designated. You could have. Look, I think that year, the 19 was the 70s or 80s.
I think it was the 80s.
I'm wanting to say it was the 80s. It was one of them too, but I'm wanting to say it was the 80s. If you would have had all the cars adhere to that 80s era, it would have been fantastic.
Sure, but they didn't.
They didn't.
Even Stewart Haas Racing didn't. Stewart Haas Racing paid homage to Tony Stewart.
To Tony Stewart. You had the 3-car Austin Dillon, in which I knew right off of the bat, we're going to unveil it when it comes off the lift gate. Oh, that's a 95 silver scheme.
Yep.
Sure enough.
And it was.
95 silver scheme.
Yeah.
All right.
If you stick with the era, that's one thing. But they're not. So
it will bring to life.
Do this. Let's try this. Let's see if they actually stick with it this time.
Yeah, and there's some schemes in particular of some that I know personally and some that I've seen. I will be interested to see them come to life.
Absolutely.
Because I think it would look very, very good.
Yep. When it comes to the ARCA Series race at Daytona, got some names to watch out for it as well. One of them is Shane Van Gisbergen. Now we hear that there is a Luxembourg native who is a NASCAR Euro Series driver. His name is Gil Linster. He's also going to be in the lineup. He's 30 years old. He's going to be driving the number 68 Ford for Kimmel Racing. Linster tested. The team said that they would put him in the car if he could get the sponsorship, so he went back home to Luxembourg and found the backing. But we don't know who it is. They haven't announced it yet. Linster right now competes in the Elite 2 division of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, where he claimed third in the final points for 2023. Says that he hopes this will be the first stepping stone to help him eventually move to the U.S. and continue his career. He says that he's being realistic, probably first in the ARCA Menard Series, and then start to move up through trucks and up into the upper levels of NASCAR if he can. Now, he's 30 years old. And at one point in time, that wasn't a problem. But at this point in time, where we're seeing drivers who are retiring at 42, 43, 44, whatever, mid-40s, early to mid-40s, there's a time limit on this kid. And I use the word kid pointedly because I'm 55.
Unfortunately.
But if you can be successful and you have the backing, somebody's going to give you a ride for a little while.
Or if you have a family member that needs to burn money.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Hey, I wish him the best of luck, and it'll be interesting to see how he does and whether or not he's going to be able to make it stick.
True.
Tell you what, let's go ahead and take this break here, hit the halfway point of the show, and when we come back, well, Las Vegas, we know we'll let you bet on pretty much anything. If you're willing to bet on NASCAR, hey, more power to you. But we'll give you the odds. Las Vegas is set through DraftKings as to who might be hoisting the Cup Series Championship Cup at the end of the year. We'll get into that when we come back. Hour 1's in the books. Whew, what a whirlwind. Hour 2 coming up right after this.
We're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Getting hour 2 underway here. Steve West along with Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers out for one more weekend at least. Hopefully he'll be back with us next weekend. Well, Las Vegas, yeah, you can bet on pretty much anything. And with DraftKings out there are odds for who's going to be the favorite to claim the 2024 title. Not really much of a surprise here in that it is a tie between a couple of Hendrick Motorsports drivers. William Byron and Kyle Larson are installed at 11-2 or 5.5-1. It's pretty good odds.
Pretty decent.
Defending champion Ryan Blaney comes in at 15-2 or 7.5-1. Denny Hamlin comes in at 8-1. Now, here's the thing for me. And you and I have pretty much talked about this, and we've come to the same kind of basic conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
My problem with Denny Hamlin is not him getting to the point where he can get into the playoffs or even maybe becoming part of the championship 4.
It's finishing.
He just somehow can't seem. Something happens to something snake bitten in that 11 car.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't finish it off. Something happens to the 11 car in the championship race, or something happens to the 11 car in the round of 8, and he doesn't make it to the championship 4.
Yep.
8-1 seems interesting. Chase Elliott, who had a very bad year last year, coming in at 17-2, so they must be thinking he's going to rebound, which I got to admit, I kind of am too. Christopher Bell at 9-1. Producer John's driver Martin Truex Jr. 10-1. Kyle Busch is 12-1. That seems a little bit far for me.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's over the 10-1 mark.
And what do we know about Joey Logano? Odd years tend to be bad years for him. Even numbered years, which 2024 is, tend to be good years.
Mm-hmm.
He is tied with Tyler Reddick. I'm sorry, Joey Logano is tied with Kyle Busch at 12-1. Then you got Tyler Reddick and Ross Chastain tied at 14-1. I could see that on Reddick and Chastain.
I would have thought Ross would be lower.
Maybe a little. But again, you got to show me that you can consistently go through the process. You know, the Hail Melon's one thing. This year, he had a situation where at the beginning of the year, he was still ticking people off. And then all of a sudden, the performance kind of went away because Ross Chastain understood, hey, I'm ticking people off. And it took him really until the last 2, maybe 3 races of the year to figure out how to drive without ticking everybody off. Ryan Blaney not included.
I would say he had it figured out by Nashville when he won Nashville.
You could argue it, but again, he had to get that point and he had to have the performance coming with it.
Sure.
Okay. Phoenix was one of those things where I think everything finally came together.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Ross Chastain, I could see I might have dropped him down to 12-1, maybe even 10-1 with Martin Truex. Tyler Reddick, I understand 14-1.
Mm-hmm.
This one kind of baffles me a little bit because considering the fact that Chris Buescher actually had a better year than Brad Keselowski, Keselowski's got a better odds, 18-1, than Chris Buescher does at 20-1. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I say this specifically this way, some of your 2024 Cup newcomers, because some of them are technically eligible for Rookie of the Year, and there's one who's not. But he's new because of the fact that when he ran as a rookie, it was what, 2020?
Yes.
So you got Josh Berry coming in to take over the 4-car at Stewart-Haas Racing. He's the best of all these 2024 newcomers, 60-1.
And I solely believe because of the car he's taking over.
And Rodney Childers.
Yep.
John Hunter Nemechek, that 2020 rookie, who is now back in the Cup Series, 100-1.
I wouldn't have even seen him as 100-1.
You'd have put it worse?
Simply because
he's in a pretty good car.
Simply because I want to see how LMC turns around from Chevrolet to Toyota first.
It is, I'll admit, yeah, that is something of a concern, but Toyota's going to be giving them everything that they can possibly take. You know that.
Oh, yeah, you know. But you got to see in that first handful of races, because you've got a certain dynamic of tracks, you've got to see how that's going to react.
Yeah.
Because
and you can't take Daytona either.
In some degree, you can't take Atlanta now.
That's true. So the first couple of races may be one of those situations where you go, well, it doesn't matter how well John Hunter Nemechek performed there. Let's go to race 3. And then let's see how he does.
Sure. Well, let's get to Phoenix.
Okay.
Let's get to Phoenix.
And see where he is and see how he does.
All right. Because as I've said before, the equipment that said person sits in will let you know real quick how good of a driver you are or how bad of a driver you are.
Well, think about this. John Hunter Nemechek at 101 is tied at those odds with Noah Gragson.
I think that's going to be partly because he's in an SHR car.
You think that's good, better, or worse? Where would you put Noah Gragson? Considering, I mean, effectively, this is the car that Noah Gragson was in that John Hunter Nemechek is going to.
Effectively, yeah.
And Noah Gragson's going into a brand new situation where, yes, we've talked about this team going through and saying this is a brand new year. We're wiping the slate clean. We're redoing everything. We're changing the paint scheme we're changing the logo. We're changing the paint scheme inside the shop. We're saying this is a new start for Stewart-Haas Racing, and we know we have to push the rock all the way up the hill. We're not anywhere near the top of the hill. We're at the bottom of the hill, need to push it all the way up.
Yeah, and then you've got two haulers that are identically painted just with Stewart-Haas on the side of it, and you got other two haulers that's got either United Rentals or Mahindra on the side of it, which I would have put them all the same, but that's not me.
So Noah Gragson 101, optimistic?
Too low.
You'd have put it where? 250, 200?
I'd have put him at, because of the simple fact of he's still somewhat green in Cup cars.
Okay.
I would have been no better than 200.
Okay. Zane Smith, rookie, 400 to 1.
About right.
Okay. Along with Daniel Hemrick and Carson Hocevar, all at 400 to 1.
Hemrick, I would have, because of he's got decent Cup experience, and I use that word decent loosely, I would have seen him more at around 300.
And as far as Carson Hocevar is concerned, we saw flashes with him filling in on that 42 car at the end of the year, which at that point in time was a Chevrolet car. He's still in a Chevrolet car, but he's in a Spire car. And I say that I like what Spire's doing. Spire is setting themselves up for the long run. They've got 3 charters in Cup. They've now bought a Cup Series team.
Sure.
But they went from one car, Corey LaJoie, that was looking really, really good at times last year and was relatively consistent throughout the course of the year. And the other car, run by Ty Dillon, which was not good. Instead of getting those 2 cars set up, now we've got 3 full-time cars in a full-time Truck Series team. They bid off a lot in this offseason. And Carson Hocevar is walking into that as a rookie in a situation where they are trying to split their attention among at least 5 vehicles. And probably more, considering the fact that I doubt seriously they're only going to run 2 trucks. I think they're going to run 3, maybe 4.
They effectively are going to have 4. Effectively.
Yeah.
Considering their alliances and technical alliances.
That's a lot of splitting attention, and you've got a rookie on top of it.
Hocevar he'll be okay.
I think he's got a good head on his shoulders.
He'll be okay. But
I'm not worried about him. I'm thinking of the car.
That's where I was going with that. They're sinking all the money into it. Now it's time to show and put the money into the cars instead of just going, hey, we got this, we got that. Oh, but we're going to run 30th every week.
And
that ain't going to work.
You're going to find if you got the right personnel in the right spot very quick.
And I'm calling Spire 2.5 cars. Because the Smith's
That's
car,
true.
his Smith's car, you know that car's going to be prepared by Trackhouse.
Oh, yeah.
You know it's going to be.
You know it. Let's see. They're going to go racing next weekend. Busch Light Clash. When we get it rolling, Fox has announced their new for 2024 broadcast crew. Here's going to be your lineup. Mike Joy, still the lead booth announcer, the veteran. Happy to have him back. He's joined once again by former Cup Series driver Clint Boyer, the new addition to the 2024 booth, 2014 Cup Series champion Kevin Harvick. Your pit reporters for the Busch Light Clash. This is only the Busch Light Clash, mind you. Pit reporters are going to be Jamie Little and Regan Smith, with America's crew chief Larry McReynolds joining him on as a technical analyst. Your pre-race coverage will be anchored by longtime Fox Sports NASCAR anchor Chris Myers. Boyer, Harvick going to be there. Jamie Little's going to be there. Regan Smith is going to be there. They'll be joined by Michael Waltrip. They're bringing them all out. And, by the way, I've been waiting for this. Starting Monday, Fox Sports 1's long-running NASCAR Race Hub show gets back in with new shows. Monday will actually mark their 2,500th episode. Hosting duties throughout the course of the season will be once again split between Adam Alexander, Shannon Spake, Caitlin Vincey, and Josh Sims in various days, depending on who's going where. Adam probably early on in the week before he goes out to do Xfinity Series coverage.
Probably.
There'll be a rotating cast of analysts on Race Hub throughout the course of the season. They will include Harvick, Boyer, Smith, Waltrip. Those are the normal ones that we would have expected. Jamie McMurray's back. Bobby Labonte's back. Trevor Bayne, despite having been hired as a consultant by LMC, Legacy Motor Club, he'll be there at least one day a week. David Reagan is going to be there, and Todd Bodine will still be there, Truck Series special announcer. In addition, expect active drivers and crew chiefs to appear like Eric Almirola, Austin Dillon, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, Drew Blickensderfer, Chad Knaus, and Andy Petrie. Most of those names are all returning to their respective roles from 2023. So there you go.
Yep.
But yeah, it begins on Monday. Thank you. According to a report in the Chicago Tribune newspaper, NASCAR is readying to write a bigger check to the city of Chicago in order to put on street course race number 2. When it was announced that there was going to be a second race in the city, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson said the city got, quote, and this is from the paper, quote, a better deal for the people, unquote. Among the things he noted that made it that better deal, reducing the setup and takedown time for the road course and securing extra money from NASCAR that will, Johnson claims, quote, give us the ability to pay for some of the costs that occurs as the result of the race. The report goes on to claim that while it is not in writing, NASCAR has agreed to pay the city an extra $2 million for not only this year, but apparently a 2025 race, as the city now is trying to turn a profit on the race weekend. No, they lost their shirt on race weekend number 1. You want to know why? Part of it is this. The Chicago Tribune report claims that the overtime and construction costs that the city workers incurred in order to put the race on was $3.5 million. NASCAR paid them about $1 million. So now they're going to pay them $2 million. I'm sorry, an extra $2 million. So NASCAR is going to maybe pay them $3 million? And you're still paying $3.5 million in overtime? No wonder they wanted to get the setup and teardown time shortened. So they don't have to pay the overtime.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have gone 3 years on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. And now we're back to the Brickyard 400. We went how many years doing Bristol on dirt?
That would be 3.
And now we're back to Bristol on cement. 2024 and 2025, according to this report.
Would be 2 and 3.
Maybe we can be done with this.
Please.
I mean, you want to go street course racing? Okay, fine. Dot your I's and cross your T's and do it right. Don't just go out there and go, well, we want to be in the city of Chicago, so why don't we go ahead and spend a whole bunch of cash to try and put on a race that's ending up losing money?
Virtually in a park. Virtually.
You want to actually do something right, and you want to be in the Los Angeles market? I got an idea.
Hello, Long Beach.
Team up with Indycar and go with the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Or if you want a street race, if you want the street race and you're set on a street race, I got two options for you.
Well,
like you just said, Long Beach.
There's Nashville.
You got.
But would you spurn Nashville Super Speedway for that? I'm not sure I would.
No,
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't spurn. Nashville would be an option, but I wouldn't.
I was kind of hooking him up with IndyCar.
I wouldn't say it would be the option because of the simple fact that you got Super Speedway and you have the fairgrounds lurking.
Yeah, that's true.
That would put three facilities in the same city.
I'm not seeing it, no.
St. Petersburg.
That is an interesting one.
St. Petersburg.
Yeah, that would be an interesting move. And you would still be early in the year and at a warm weather location.
Hey, here's another one. If you're so dead set on a street race and you're trying to explore possibly teaming back up with IndyCar, Toronto.
Ooh. And we've been talking about going to Canada.
There's your international race.
Been talking going to Canada. I mentioned last week, Rick Rail Racing signing Kaz Gralla to drive 25 races in the number 15 car. That left 13 races open. That includes the Busch Light Clash and the All-Star race unaccounted for. We also talked about whether Cody Ware could return to that particular car as well. It does appear he's angling toward exactly that. He has been cleared, as we mentioned, legally. He's been reinstated by NASCAR after last year being arrested on domestic assault charges. Those got dismissed. Now he's looking to get back to racing. He said this past week, quote, "Not set in stone, but tentatively plans are to be back in the Cup car in April. We're dotting our I's and crossing our T's there." Where did I just hear that phrase? Sponsorships and getting everything lined up. After my suspension last year, lost the majority of my sponsorships. We're trying to build everything back up after that. So again, we still don't have the 15 car spoken for the Daytona 500. As for Gralla,
something's telling me that's going to be Riley Herbst.
You might be right there. As for Gralla, which means that car would be set up by Stewart House Racing.
Uh-huh.
As for Gralla, we noted that his first race would be in Atlanta, race number 2 of the points season. The Daytona 500's open. Again, we don't know what that's going to be happening, but we actually do know what Kaz Gralla is going to be doing for the Great American Race. He's going to Front Row Motorsports. He'll be driving the number 36 Ford Mustang with sponsorship from Rudabush Development and Construction. This will mark Kaz Gralla's third attempt at the Daytona 500. It continues, by the way, also a trend for Front Row Motorsports. This will be their third entry for the Daytona 500 now for the 5th time in their history.
Before we go to break, I'm going to pump the brakes on what I just said about Riley Herbst.
Okay.
Rick Ware's a RFK aligned team now.
That's true. They're no longer aligned with SHR.
So
it doesn't eliminate them putting him in there, but it does seem to lessen the odds.
Lessens the odds. That virtually limits your choices.
In a lot of ways, you're right. But they're all in the Ford camp. So depending on how many strings Ford's willing to pull, if they wanted to do that, or Cole Custer for that matter, I'm just throwing it out there, it's possible that they could make that happen. We'll see. Again, the alignment, he's right, though. Them going to RFK Racing might put a bit of a damper on that one.
Yep.
We'll talk a little more John Hunter Nemechek and some sponsorships when we come back.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. We appreciate you joining us. Steve West along with Matt Nicholson here. And as we get back into things here, a couple more notes in the Cup Series where John Hunter Nemechek kind of been up and down in NASCAR over the last couple of seasons. We just talked about that his return to the Cup Series, bringing along some longtime partners of his to appear on the Legacy MC number 42. Albertson's company is going to be on there, Pye Barker Fire and Safety, and Romco Equipment. Now, Albertson's been with Nemechek since he began racing in NASCAR back in 2015. They own 35 grocery store chains and own grocery stores in some 35 states in Washington, D.C., I should say. Several brands of them as well, Albertson's just being one of them. Pye Barker's been with Nemechek for 8 years now, been a leader in fire and safety equipment since beginning the company back in 1946. And Romco Equipment Company, like Albertsons, has partnered with Nemechek since 2015. They are a heavy equipment supplier and repair company based in Texas for over 6 decades. Some of the equipment they specialize in, construction, paving, aggregate, and stuff like that. So big time, heavy power. So you go there. Trackhouse Racing announced this week that insurance agency Focused Health is going to be on the 71 Chevy Camaro for Zane Smith, the majority of the races this year, 20 of them to be specific, and that's a pretty good chunk. You got a look at that car on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Trackhouse Racing. Smith, of course, signed to Spire Motorsports, being loaned out. Flip that. Signed to Trackhouse Racing, being loaned to Spire to fill the seat of the 71. Focused Health joins WeatherTech as one of the sponsors on that 71 for 2024. It'll be interesting to watch the progress of these cars. Again, my main concern is that they may have bitten off more than they can chew over there, because this is a big adjustment to go from one car who's been solid and the 77 car, which really has been inconsistent ever since it joined. And now you're getting a 7, a 77, and a 71, and joining a Truck Series operation. All of that together, that's a big adjustment for Spire. I love the ambition, truly love the ambition, but have you bitten off more than you can chew?
Back to what I said a couple segments ago, I call them a 2.5 car because Trackhouse has got a real big hand.
Yeah, I get it. But still, that's a lot of vehicles that they got to prepare for.
Yeah, and out of the schemes that I've seen for 24 already, this is probably one of the better looking ones I've seen.
Yeah, that's a good.
The orange and blues looks good.
A good looking car. Xfinity Series Dash for Cash program back again for 2024. No shock there. We now have the details of it. The March 30th race at Richmond will determine the first 4 eligible drivers for the $100,000 prize. And then at Martinsville, April the 6th, the first of the finisher of those 4 pocket the extra cash. Then the field is reset for Texas, April the 13th. We'll do it again at our track, April 20th at Talladega. And one more shot for the bonus money, April 27th at Dover. Now, Texas joins this lineup for the first time since 2010. Martinsville, Talladega, and Dover are back in the lineup of races now for the second year in a row. Talladega's been a pretty consistent one of those.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's the right thing to do.
It is.
I'm a little bit of a homer, but at the same time.
Well, not only that, it cuts the Cup drivers out of the Xfinity race.
Yes. That's the other
they dominated for so long.
Drivers who declare to run for points in the Cup Series, not eligible to race in any of these 4 Dash for Cash races. They also, the series NASCAR added, they're barred from racing in the playoffs as well, but that's pretty consistent. Cup Series drivers, however, will not be restricted as they were in 2023 from entering the Chicago Street Course at Xfinity Series race, and they'll also be allowed to race at Iowa June 15th. That's the Xfinity Series race the day before the Cup Series is set to make their debut at Iowa. That's not a terribly big surprise to me on either count. No. I was actually a little surprised that Cup Series drivers were not allowed to race the Xfinity Chicago race last year.
Well, I could have seen the point with being a totally brand new racetrack and them getting that extra seat time for the Cup race on Sunday, running Saturday to get extra seat time.
Yeah, but still, I was a little surprised by it.
Yeah, but it's, as you can see, it didn't make that much of a difference.
No, it didn't. Sam Hunt Racing announced they've signed Sage Karam to run one of their race cars for the season opening race at Daytona, set to be the first of several races he's slated to run this year for the organization. Karam's got about 25 Xfinity starts to his credit since back in 2015. Best finishes do come with Sam Hunt Racing. He'll be driving the number 26 CRC Auto Brake Clean Toyota. What did we say about Sam Hunt Racing? Maybe starting to fill in more than one car? Now they've got a driver to be able to do it?
I think he's going to run the vast majority of them for him, which I don't think is a bad thing for Sam.
Yeah, because he doesn't have an IndyCar ride this year. So he's available. Much like the Xfinity Series Dash for Cash, you got the Triple Truck Challenge back for the Craftsman Truck Series. The 3 races for them, May 24th at Charlotte, June 1st, Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway, and then Nashville, June 28th. This is a repeat of the 3 tracks that hosted the program last year. Eligible drivers are those running for points in the Truck Series. So even if a Cup Series driver does moonlight, they ain't eligible to do it.
Nope.
Here's how it goes. Winning driver, $50,000. You get $50,000 for 1 win. Should you win 2 of those 3 races, you net $150,000. And if a driver happens to be lucky enough to sweep Charlotte, Worldwide Tech, and Nashville, $500,000. But still, $50,000 for winning 1 of those 3 races, those teams like that money.
Yeah, for a Truck Series, that's a pretty sizable influx.
Yep. The hometown driver here in East Central Alabama, Brett Holmes, after taking the final couple of 2023 races off to concentrate on 2024, promises a full-time run in the Craftsman Truck Series this year. Partners include, obviously, Chevrolet. We've talked about that. He's in a technical alliance with the previously mentioned Spire Motorsports. Again, have they bitten off more than they can chew? In addition, sponsors the returning Golden Eagle Syrup. We've seen them. Thompson Tractor. I think they got on the truck last year.
No.
They're new? Okay. Precision Garage Door Service. They, I think, were for 1 or 2 races?
3.
3 races total. All of them are going to be primary sponsors for about, Precision Garage Door is going to be on for a half dozen races, including the season opener at Daytona. They've also signed a company called Butler Built Professional Seat Systems. In addition, the team has a new crew chief for this year. They've signed NASCAR veteran Mike Shiplett, who's called races in all 3 of NASCAR's top series. Shiplett said, quote, "I'm looking forward to my first full-time season as a crew chief in the Truck Series with BHR. The Holmes family has a strong commitment and desire for success in the series. This, along with the changes we've made over the offseason, makes me excited for the opportunity to work with Brett and this team to bring the organization their first Truck Series win." What does Mike Shiplett bring that, for example, they didn't have last year?
Stability.
Okay. Because, we talked about health problems.
It brings stability.
Okay.
Some of the engineers, and it's not official yet, but some of the engineers that I've heard that he's looking to bring, it'll only bring in that much more stability.
And presumably experience.
Okay. And because last year there really wasn't a full-scale technical alliance with anyone. I know that chassis came from GMS.
Yeah. But they weren't really in a technical
They
alliance.
really wasn't in a full-scale technical alliance. There were some, not all, some support from Chevrolet, but not big support. Let's word it that way.
Okay.
Getting the technical alliance with Spire now, that gives that ability to get resources and information from them, because
because Spire's going to get it from Chevrolet.
Effectively now, Spire is the flagship Chevrolet team.
Yeah, that's true.
Effectively.
Yeah.
So it makes too much sense.
Agreed.
Partner with Spire, get some updated equipment, fine tune that updated equipment, and put some stability and experience on top of your pit box.
We'll see.
Simply put, and I mean, this is by no means a knock or a cut down on anything or any driver in specifically, but getting that stability, you ain't got no reason this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all systems go.
Let the flags fly, boys.
And let the flags fly and hammer down. And then with the Golden Eagle, to my understanding, Golden Eagle will have 1 full primary.
Okay.
And I'm presuming that's probably going to be Talladega.
That'd seem appropriate.
I would probably think that's going to be Talladega. Thompson is a full season associate, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are
Get a couple of times
on the hood, but which therefore that would bring Caterpillar back into this fray.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll just see. I mean, they're setting themselves up to be in good shape this year.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of execution.
Everything's laid out for them to have a really good year this year.
It is.
To the National Hot Rod Association, where 2020 NHRA Rookie of the Year Justin Ashley has been successful in his time in Top Fuel. His sponsor since the 2022 season, Phillips Connect, rewarding them. They've re-upped their partnership deal. It's a major associate sponsorship on the new Skag Ashley Top Fuel team. And in the announcement, Phillips has announced that the deal for 2024 will expand to cover more than just Phillips Connect. It actually opens up all the sub-brands under the Phillips umbrella, including their industrial side and their innovative side as well. So it'll be interesting to see the paint schemes that come out of that. When the season gets underway in Gainesville, there's a new young face set to show up in the form of a 17-year-old Canadian native by the name of Sienna Wildgust. And this week she is preparing to make her pro stock, who said this week she's preparing to make her pro stock car debut after earning her license to compete in the series just this week. Thanks to NHRA.com for the picture of Wildgust you can see on CRN Live on YouTube right now. This is a young lady who started racing at the age of 8. As she turned 16, she was already bracket racing a 1968 Camaro, but admitted at the time she was already aiming for a pro stock car career, saying, quote, "I've always wanted to make a career out of drag racing and really wanted to drive a quote-unquote real race car," as some people would say. I was more drawn to pro stock and how they worked than I was to anything else. Her father, pro mod competitor Scott Wildgust, said they were able to get a hold of one of Camry Caruso's 2023 cars to be able to go for the license. And then one of Scott's competitors, Eric Latino, got them in contact with KB Titan Racing. That's where Sienna got to know Dallas Glenn. Got her some simulator time in the team shop in 2023. Finally got a testing and license schedule. Should she qualify for the Gator Nationals, she becomes the youngest female competitor in top-level NHRA history.
Somebody that's got their ducks in a row that clear and that organized, I could see it happening.
I could too.
Very quickly.
Yep, absolutely. Then there's a guy by the name of Dave Richards. Richards and the family-operated Paul Richards Racing team have been racing part-time in Funny Car over the last decade. But starting this year, they're going to go full-time with the help of, tell me if you haven't heard this name before, Skag Power Equipment. Specifically their sister organization, Versatran, along with sponsorship from turf care company Bluebird. They're going to go full-time racing. This marks the third entry officially in the Skag Racing team, pairing Richards with Daniel Wilkerson and Justin Ashley. We said when this was announced, this whole Skag Racing team, that they were going to be doing Top Fuel with Justin Ashley. They were going to be doing Funny Car with Daniel Wilkerson. But at that time, even they said they were going to be a 3-car operation, but they didn't say who that third car is. Now we know. And Richards made his NHRA debut back in 2013 at the New England Nationals. He's competed in some 52 national events, qualified for 43 of them, so a pretty decent record for a very spotty start schedule. 6 quarterfinal appearances. I kind of got a look over at Dave and his Funny Car operation there on CRN Live on YouTube, thanks to NHRA.com. So with that being said, Richards technically not, let's just deal with it. Here's your rookie class. And this only deals with what we now call the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series. That's Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle. Here's your 2024 rookies, noting Wildgust is now eligible out of the Pro Stock category. Daniel Wilkerson, eligible out of the Funny Car ranks because he doesn't have enough starts yet, even though he has a handful of starts, didn't have enough starts to do it. So he's eligible as well. So Wildgust and Wilkerson out of Funny Car. From Pro Stock Motorcycle, we talked about him last week, Richard Gadsden. And then there's a loaded group out of Top Fuel. You got Ida Zetterstrom, who moves over from NHRA Europe to begin to try to make her way in the United States. You got Travis Shoemake and Jasmine Salinas, both kids of veteran NHRA racers coming into their own. You got Jacob McNeil betting on himself after having bought the Buddy Hull Top Fuel operation. And then there's some guy that you might have heard of, Tony Stewart. You think, Tony Stewart.
Never heard of him.
50, 51, something like that. I hear he's had a couple of pretty good years in the racing world. How the heck is he a rookie? Because he has not got one single start in NHRA Top Fuel Nitro competition. Last year in the Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series Top Alcohol does not count against him being rookie eligible. This.
Nope.
Let's see how that goes.
Yep.
Let's talk some testing here before we go to break in the IndyCar series, because they got some new car regulations for 2024. You got the changes to the venerable DW12 Dallara-built chassis, using some new lightweight parts in the assembly. Dallara's been using aluminum parts for several years, including things like transmission cases and bell housings. Now they're going to be using lighter magnesium for this, with the lighter weight, and yet to include the added weight of the hybrid engine package, which isn't going to happen until sometime after the Indy 500. Speeds should actually be a little bit quicker than last year because, let's face it, weight is an enemy of speed. Teams were told to use these new magnesium-built parts at this week's preseason test at Homestead Miami's Roval. Yes, there is a Roval at Homestead Miami. On day one, Monday, Felix Rosenqvist powered his Meyer-Shank Racing entry to a fast time of 1 minute 11.446 seconds. 10 cars participated on day one. Times ranged from Rosenqvist's time that we just mentioned to the slowest time, Stingray Robb in the A.J. Foyt entry, 1 minute 14.632 seconds. So that's a 3-second difference on day one. Day two tightened up a little bit. Colton Herta was atop the speed chart on day two, pulled a fast lap of the day at 1 minute 11.182. Dropped it down by not quite 3/10 in the Andretti Global entry. Slowest of the 11 drivers participating, again, Stingray Robb in the A.J. Foyt entry, but as opposed to a 1:14, he pulled a 1 minute 12.856 lap.
Right at 2 seconds.
So that was a nice pickup on day two. Third and final day of preseason testing on Wednesday at Homestead Miami. Yet a third driver on the top, but it was Andretti Global again. This time, Kyle Kirkwood pulling the fastest timer on the track's Roval course. 1 minute 11.27 seconds, so a touch slower than the fastest time of the week set on day two. 10 drivers taking part on day three. At the bottom, another A.J. Foyt car. This time it's Santino Ferrucci, but a 1:12.319, so just over a second slower than the fastest time. So tightened up a little bit.
Yep.
One other thing to note about this test session, the Honda-powered cars were the quickest on all 3 days. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that will translate over into the season. This is one racetrack, a Roval, and you're only doing 10 cars at a 10, 11 cars at a time. So is it the biggest tell of what's going to happen during the year? Not really.
No. Nope.
Not really. But it is interesting to note that the times did improve for A.J. Foyt Racing, who, again, remember, got a collaboration with Team Penske this year.
Stay right here for more.
Welcome back in for, well, as it turns out, one more segment.
Yep.
Wow, this morning has flown by.
Yep.
Marco Andretti is prepping for a pretty stacked stock car racing schedule this year, but he ain't done with IndyCar racing yet. It's announced he will race this year's Indy 500. He's going to attempt to qualify in a number 98 Andretti Global entry, sponsorship coming from Curb Records and Mapai. This will be Marco's 19th try to claim an Indy 500 trophy. Right now, this is the only race he's scheduled for. I'm not going to say it's outside the realm of possibility. He might try to get into another race at some point somewhere. Maybe. But again, when you look at that fairly stacked stock car racing schedule, that may be his only shot this year.
Yeah. I mean, it was the only shot he took last year.
That's it. We'll find out. Simon Pagenaud, we talked about him last year being injured pretty severely enough in a June crash during a pre-race practice at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. He ended up missing the remainder of the 2023 season. He's still actually kind of recovering from this. He gave an update on his condition on Monday of this week, said, quote, "I know it's been a long time, and I felt like it was time to give you an update. I'm making major progress," he said in a statement, quote, "Unfortunately, the injuries don't show on the outside. I actually feel great physically, but it's on the inside where the injuries are located, so those are frustrating because you don't get to see them heal. Just time makes a difference. So I have to be very patient. Doing a lot of rehab, getting stronger every day. With that, however, it goes up and down. Some days you get better, some days kind of regress. Overall, I just want to reassure everyone I am doing well. I just want to be at the top level. I'm working on that. I'm working on getting myself back to 100%. All the doctors, the IndyCar medical team, they've been phenomenal, helping me, connecting me with the right people. And I do a lot of work in the background that obviously right now nobody gets to see. But I want to thank everybody for the support. I want to reassure everyone that I'm not forgetting about all the support from the fans out there that have been so supportive. So thank you for the fans, everyone. I'll keep working hard. I'll keep pushing. And I'm very hopeful to get stronger very soon.
Hello, IndyCar. IndyCar's version of Kurt Busch.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah,
it's
sad to say it because Simon Pagenaud is a fantastic, very versatile racer too, because this means he can't run the Rolex 24 hours a Daytona, which he has been a pretty regular fixture at as well.
Yeah, because I remember when I was... Excuse me.
You and I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is today.
Coughing and all this stuff.
At Mid-Ohio, the corner that I was in on the race on Saturday, the corner marshal that was there in my corner, he was in that corner that he flipped at.
Yeah, and they said he barrel rolled 7 times in an IndyCar.
Yeah, he said that was one of the fastest, most violent flips he's ever seen. Mm-hmm. And it's coming straight off the long straightaway going into turn 5, which is China Beach.
Yeah.
He said, I honestly thought he was dead.
Oh, sure. I mean, just the film of it was ugly.
At speed.
Can you imagine being there in person live and seeing that? Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the latest instance of, hey, you're the one that bought a track near a racetrack. You bought a house near a racetrack. No, we're not talking about Nashville Fairgrounds either. This time we present the saga of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Back on December the 11th, a citizens group calling themselves the Highway 68 Coalition filed a lawsuit against the owners of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. The owners, by the way, are Monterey County, California. So they filed suit against the county, naming the county board of supervisors and a group called the Friends of Laguna Seca. The suit alleges the track is in violation of nuisance orders regarding noise levels. Local residents also noted traffic issues due to the number of events that the course hosts each year. And WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca holds a lot of race days. I want to say between sanctioned racing and track days, they're probably in the area of 150 to 200 events throughout the course of a year. I know that Sonoma's at 200. So it wouldn't shock me at all to find that this track is somewhere in that area too.
Let's see.
While you're looking that up, I'll continue to talk about this. Friends of the Laguna Seca organization retorted that the coalition is merely seeking to disrupt the planned track improvements and the Laguna recreation area as a whole, Ross Merrill, who's the president of Friends of Laguna Seca, said, quote, "We live here too and share the same concerns as our neighbors about noise and traffic. Our team of experienced business and community leaders are eager to move forward to revive this staple in our community for decades of future success and revenue generation for Monterey County." A spokesperson for Monterey County added that it is, quote, "unfortunate certain individuals have chosen to file a complaint against the county concerning operations at Laguna Seca, and that it does not recognize any merit to the allegations and expects a favorable legal conclusion. At this time, the suit likely won't have an impact on the 2024 schedule for the track because, well, we all know how fast courts work."
Okay. I'm looking at Google Maps here.
Okay.
And I have, in a satellite form, I'm looking at a subdivision that probably, I'm sure, was built way after this racetrack was established.
I'm quite certain of that, yes.
The name of the place is actually houses around a golf course. The club at Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the racetrack off of 68 sets about approximately a mile and a half.
Okay.
This makes no sense.
You said that this is a subdivision and a race course?
This looks like a subdivision built around a golf course because you've got Laguna Seca Golf Ranch and the club at Pasadena, which is probably the same thing.
Probably.
And the main gate to the entry of the racetrack off of 68 is maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles.
Okay. I just looked it up. So, judging by the houses that you can kind of see, you're estimating this was a subdivision built when?
It appears to be recently.
So within the, say, last decade to 15 years?
I would say so, yeah.
Monterey was built in 1957.
Yeah. It's just people that don't know what you're talking about.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, you bought a house next to a racetrack. The racetrack was already there. Let me repeat that. The racetrack was already there, and you bought a house next to it.
These people. Daytona is in the middle of a city.
Yeah.
Charlotte is on the edge of Concord, which is a city. Let's see. Darlington is on the outskirts.
It is. Yeah. There's some businesses around there, but it's not really near all that close to a residential area.
But we're going to use the good old friendly
Richmond.
Richmond's in the middle of the city in the fairgrounds, and you've got to go through 2 subdivisions to get there. Okay. The friendly confines known as Talladega Superspeedway. Not even a mile. Not even a mile.
Yeah.
You've got residential homes. That track was built in 1969.
Yep.
None of those houses were built before 1969. Do you think there would not be something called a civil war breakout if somebody come in and go, "We're filing suit against Talladega because of the noise ordinances"?
You bought a house next to a racetrack. What did you expect?
Won't you be my neighbor? No, we won't. Shut up and live with it.
I wish I could be a judge in a situation like that. You may or may not have known this. There is a museum located in the infield of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I've been there. It's been a long time, but I've been there. It's fantastic.
I could stay there all day.
The museum also includes the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame. Wednesday, the hall announced they're going to induct 2 people for their 2024 class, and it's a pair of Indy 500 winners, Juan Pablo Montoya and Tony Kanaan. They'll be officially inducted on Thursday, May 23rd, right before the famed Indy 500.
Very solid picks.
Absolutely. Very much deserved.
Very solid.
To Formula One, got a picture here. F1 officials have announced they have approved and will add to the 2026 schedule a Madrid-based street course race in Spain. The last time F1 raced in the city was 1981. That was the Jarama Road Course. In other words, a dedicated road course. This new course is going to be carved out of the city. It's going to use the IFEMA Exhibition Center as a centerpiece, but it will also run by the stadiums of 2 well-known European soccer powers, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. The paddock will have to be built. You can kind of see what the track probably will ultimately look like. Don't know if this is final or not, but it's on CRN Live on YouTube, thanks to Formula One for this particular picture. I am a little curious as to how somebody like Max Verstappen, who has said that he hates street courses, is going to react to this, because if this actually happens and the street course number that we get in 2024 carries over into 2026, that means 9 street course races. When does Max Verstappen pick up his steering wheel and go home? Because he keeps threatening that.
Max, I will gladly take over that Red Bull car for you.
You don't want to do it anymore?
I'll gladly drive.
Somebody's willing to take it over. How many drivers we talked about over the course of time that can't get into Formula One? They're stuck at Formula 2 because Formula One is locked down.
Yeah.
Trust me, somebody will be happy to take your seat. And other than your most ardent fans, not that many people are going to miss you, Max.
I would drive for 2 days straight to get my F1 Super License points and drive that car in a minute.
There you go. As for details of this Madrid street course, reports have the course at 20 turns over 3.39 miles, but few other details were given. And again, changes could be made between now and the 2026 race date. Reportedly, Formula One and the race promoters have signed a 10-year deal. All is not said and done necessarily, though, for Barcelona's Catalunya circuit, where they're currently running. That deal runs through 2025, and F1 officials said that they are open to the idea of 2 Spanish Formula One races. We got 2 in Italy, we got 3 in the United States. Why not 2 in Spain, right?
Go for it.
Talks continue with the race promoters at Catalunya. As we talked about on the show last week, the official name change for AlphaTauri is indeed Visa Cash App RB. So which is worse, the new name for Sauber or Visa Cash App RB? I'll leave that up to you. This, by the way, marks Visa's first, quote, major global sports sponsorship in 15 years, the team announcement claims. As part of the sponsorship deal, the Visa logo will also appear on the Red Bull racers, but Red Bull already has a title sponsorship. They have it with Oracle, even though we don't state it a whole lot. So basically, they've got a title sponsorship with the former AlphaTauri and an associate sponsorship with Red Bull.
What happened to the simple team names of yesteryear?
I know. Wouldn't it be nice? Since the idea of renaming AlphaTauri began to float around in the F1 paddock, a whole lot of people felt like it might be called Racing Bulls, but that was nixed fairly quickly, according to an ESPN.com source, by higher-ups at Red Bull itself. So it got switched to RB. The report adds that before Visa and Cash App signed officially, talks had been going on with companies like JP Morgan and Hugo Boss. Now, that would be a switch for Hugo Boss, because Hugo Boss has been on Mercedes for quite a while. Mm-hmm. We'll find out. Mm-hmm. Ferrari has announced an extension of their deal with Charles Leclerc, keeping the French driver in the Ferrari fold through at least 2026, according to motorsport.com, who said that the exact length of the deal's not been announced, so they don't really know, in other words. Leclerc said of the extension, quote, "I'm very pleased to know I'll be wearing the Scuderia Ferrari racing suit for several more seasons to come." He was signed into the Ferrari program early on in his racing career, joining the F1 organization for 2019 after having spent his rookie season with the Alfa Romeo Sauber organization, which was at that time a Ferrari customer. Now 26-year-old has 5 wins and 23 poles over that time. Now the attention turns to what's going to happen with his teammate, Carlos Sainz. Like Leclerc, before the extension, he's set to enter this year, his final year of his current deal. He's 29 years old. Out of Spain, he would like to settle his future before the season starts, adding, quote, "I feel perfectly valued by team leadership and the whole Ferrari family in general. I feel loved. Therefore, I will renew if I feel that way and I feel like I'm being valued. I'm convinced that if we both want to, we'll reach an agreement on a duration that I'm happy with." So in other words, he wants a multi-year deal. Mm-hmm. McLaren has extended their deal with Lando Norris. Norris certainly seemed to earn it after he claimed 6 podium finishes last year. McLaren released a statement, said that they had come to terms on a, quote, extended multi-year agreement, but stopped short of giving the actual length of said deal. He was signed through the 2025 season previously, but with 2 straight seasons showing improvement, McLaren decided they wanted him in the fold long term, and that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Haas F1 not going to wait totally until the preseason practice sessions to reveal how their 2024 racers will look, as you can see by a picture on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Haas F1. They're going to pull the covers off on Groundhog Day. Now, this is actually a 2-stage reveal. Kind of like what McLaren did. They didn't show off the car. They showed off how the wrap on the car is going to look for 2024 last week. Mm-hmm. On February the 2nd, again, Groundhog Day, they're going to show how the wrap on the cars will look and then unveil the car on February the 11th. Okay. So now we know when all 10 teams are going to reveal their cars. McLaren has, again, not the car itself, but shown the look of it. Haas F1 February the 2nd. Williams and Sauber February the 5th. Alpine on February the 7th, showing off both their F1 and World Endurance Challenge racers. Visa Cash App RB announced they're going to show off their new cars on February the 8th. Then on February the 12th, it'll be Aston Martin. Ferrari on the 13th. Mercedes, happy Valentine's Day. And then on the 15th, finally, Red Bull will show theirs off. I love this. After the 2023 race where fans got onto the Albert Park race course while racers were still on it, the organizer of the Australian Grand Prix has told fans if anybody sets foot on the track before the cars are off, they're going to be banned from attending any future Australian Grand Prix. Okay. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, it won't last long.
I mean, at this point in time, it's beginning to look like they're not even going to allow fans in there for the post-race podium celebration. That's going to look good on television.
Yep.
This will be a one-year deal. If you've been eagerly awaiting whenever the 6th season of the Netflix series Formula One Drive to Survive will come down, we have good news for you. The wait is almost over. The 10-episode series recapping the 2023 season drops February the 23rd. That happens to be the final day of preseason testing in Bahrain. And we noted at the start of the show that while he didn't win yesterday in race 1 of the Diriyah Ypres doubleheader, Jean-Eric Vergne did claim the pole position for the race. This marks the 16th career pole win for him, and that matches Sebastian Buemi for the most all-time poles in Formula E's relatively short history. And both drivers are active this season in the series, so we may be seeing this going back and forth between those two for a little while now.
Very well could.
We'll find out. We'll also tell you about the results of that. We'll talk results of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, which is going to get underway here in just a couple hours. And if you're here in Alabama like we are, get ready for rain because we've got a line of thunderstorms moving through.
Already started.
Y'all be careful out there wherever you are. Enjoy the racing. We'll talk to you next week right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450